What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with one of the best grapplers on planet Earth, Mr. Andrew Tackett.
Damn,
Thank you so much.
definitely not the best.
Well, one of the best for sure, man. You're in the
Not even close. Not even close, man. I'm
well
still.
compared to 99% of people walking around on the
I,
planet.
I
I'd say
appreciate you, man.
you're definitely in
Thank
that
you.
top echelon. But dude, thanks so much. We connected at the ADCC trials this weekend. It was really good meeting you. Really good having you on the show. And I'm really excited to ask you about your faith and just how you see God is using jiu-jitsu. And we were talking a little bit about that this weekend. So I'm really excited to dive more into that. But first, I'm going to ask you the question that we start off every interview with, which is how does training in jiu-jitsu help your mental health?
Man, I mean, that's a really good question right there. I mean, I've been trained jiu-jitsu since I was 6, 5, around there, pretty young. And as I was growing up, jiu-jitsu always helped me in multiple different ways. It taught me self-control because in jiu-jitsu, you need to have self-control on when to train and not when to train or you'll get hurt. So it taught me self-control over my emotions, like not diving into something too far and getting hurt mentally, or not also giving enough into it because then I won't get anything out of it. So it taught me that a lot. So I go through my daily life just with that aspect, like being careful before I dive into something and being, also not too cautious to where I miss that opportunity. And as a jiu-jitsu athlete, when it comes to training and when it comes to competing, you want to, jump on the position, jump on the choke, but you need to protect yourself also like a cautious attack approach to life. So jiu-jitsu definitely taught me that, and that's helped me out so much. I would say one other thing off the top of my head that jiu-jitsu has really, worked in my life off the mats is just living a really clean and healthy lifestyle. Because you're not going to eat cake every night, and you're not going to stay up till 2 a.m. And train good. And as a jiu-jitsu athlete that enjoys training, I want to be able to train as much as possible. And if I'm doing everything wrong, then I won't get to train, to my full potential. So, it teaches you a really healthy lifestyle. Go to bed early, eat clean, also sacrificing things so that you can train hard. So that it taught me that as well. So those are just two things that jiu-jitsu really helped me out, outside of the mats, outside of the gym, and I'm thankful for it.
Man, I can really relate with that because when I started training, I was smoking a pack a day of cigarettes. I had just gotten, started smoking when I was 17. And when I started training, I was around 19. And man, I just found out right away that it gassed me to no end. Like I was so tired of always gassing out and getting and tapping due to pressure and all that stuff. Like I just couldn't even do anything once we started rolling. So I was like,
Yeah.
man, these cigarettes have got to go. And it was so easy to quit because I was addicted to this new thing, this new assassin game that I had fallen in love with. And man, I really relate with what you said. I just want to dive into that and linger into it a little bit more. How do you feel like jujitsu helps your relationships with your family? Because I know that all your brothers train as well. Your brother William did really well this past weekend at the trials. Shout out to him. But
Shout out to Willie Tackett. Good job, man.
Savage. So, what's that been like, man? Like, how do you guys interact? Or I guess, how do you feel like that's influenced your life as a family?
I mean, so me and my older brother started jiu-jitsu first. My dad started second, like a couple months later, and then my little brother started um like like 2 years later. And my mom tried it out. I wasn't really for her. She tried it, but she was just like, eh. So we all do jiu-jitsu. And we all, deal with the same things. It's made our relationship definitely stronger because we have, what's the word? We have same interests. We have the, things to talk about. We have things to, inspire towards. And I think a big, structure of a healthy relationship is having the same interests. If I had zero interests that William and Caleb and my parents had, then it would be really hard to talk to them. But since we all share that love for jiu-jitsu, it always never left the room quiet. Like we always had something to talk about, and we always had something to struggle with by each other to get better at it. But it definitely made it hard sometimes. I mean, three boys that are all around the same age growing up, knowing how to fight with, you know, testosterone and puberty going through their veins. William and I didn't fight that much. Caleb and I fought a little bit. And when we fought to the death. Like we used our jiu-jitsu skills. So, I mean, our relationship's all really good.
That's
And
awesome.
I definitely have to thank jiu-jitsu for that.
It's a way to transmute that energy and kind of get it out, because sometimes that could take a negative route. But I feel like if you have a way to squash whatever's going on, it's healthy. It's healthy.
I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah, I think that if you don't work out or you don't lift or something to that nature, then you will either become really lazy or you will become super energetic or stressed. I've seen this in a lot of people that don't train or anything like that. They'll be stressed out for no reason because they don't have anywhere for that hormones and stress to go. But through jiu-jitsu and training, I'll come home super tired and I will literally just be as happy as it can be, even though I'm tired because I'm stress free. I'm a stress free, exhausted person. So, jiu-jitsu has really helped that as far as our family as well. We're never, too anxious for something. We're never too hyper for something because we're tired from training. So that's been good as well.
Yeah, it kind of gets out that excess energy that might otherwise lead to anxiety or bickering or just extra whatever. It's almost like, man, you went out and hunted together and then you're able to chill. It's fun.
That, that's very well put. Yep.
Primal, so to speak. But
Primal. Let's go. Primal. I love that word.
I like it too. But dude, that's a good segue, I think, into what I wanted to ask you about the most, which is I know that you're a really spiritual guy. I know that your relationship with God is really important to you. How do you feel like God is using jujitsu and the martial arts these days to help humanity? And I guess what's his master plan behind this crazy assassin game that we're all into?
Um, that is a very good question. I first off, I do just want to say that I could not be here and I could not be in this position without God. And a lot of people being like, "Well, you put the work in, you put the time in." Well, God did a lot of that. He kept me focused. He kept my body safe. He kept me mentally safe. And if I wasn't all of those things, there's no way I could have been here. I mean, He opened the doors for me to work hard. If I was just working hard towards nothing, then I wouldn't gain anything. But I was working hard with a path that He set me on. And I really think that God has a plan for Jiu-Jitsu. I think there's a lot of, crazy people in Jiu-Jitsu because they use Jiu-Jitsu as like we were talking about, like a sign of relief and a sign of like, stress relief. And so it becomes very addicting, Jiu-Jitsu. It becomes, where you're relying on it, and I think God's going to use Jiu-Jitsu to veer that focus back towards Him to where you'll end up not relying on Jiu-Jitsu, but relying on God and seeing Him as your stress relief and seeing Him as your, anxiety relief and seeing Him as where you can place your burdens on Him. Because it says in the Bible, God's yoke is light, it's not heavy. And so I feel a lot of times in Jiu-Jitsu, you feel the weight of the world, you feel the heaviness of the world, because you're getting beat up, you're training really hard. But I really like. I have to correct myself a bit. I really like because jiu-jitsu, you can train as hard as you want, and afterwards you're just as happy as you can be. I've never seen someone angry at jiu-jitsu in a very long time. And usually, if they're angry, it's because they're dealing with a lot on their plate. So I think God's going to use that manner as well, because when you go to Him, you feel great after. When you go to jiu-jitsu, you feel great after. So a lot of things, in jiu-jitsu and God relate to each other and connect. Like I can't, be inconsistent with God because it says if you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. No one wants to drink lukewarm water. And same with jiu-jitsu. If you're just kind of doing it, you'll never get better. You have to, dive into it and want to learn. And same with God, you have to dive in and want to learn. So there's so much relations between the two. I think He's going to use how similar the two are to shine, His glory and His name to the world.
It's almost like training people in how to be more spiritual is kind of what you're saying.
Exactly. One day I do hopefully want to open up a gym. Hopefully I go down that path. Maybe I go down a different path, but if I do open up a gym, I don't want to make it too, what's the word? I don't want to make it too God focused because that could turn some people off. But I definitely want to have a structure base of God, and I want to, show, his characteristics through how I teach, and show his characteristics how Jiu-Jitsu and them are similar. So it will just naturally draw people towards God.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's a natural drawing because, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at. It's almost like it puts the person in the right headspace to be receptive to a spiritual teaching or to something that is a little bit more esoteric, so to speak, or something that's a little more, again, yeah, like you said, we don't, like me personally, I don't want to shove my beliefs down someone else's throat. But if they see who I am and they see the character that I have, they might want to know more about that side of my life. And if they ask, then I get the opportunity to share. And you're not going to have that opportunity if you're not that good person, I guess is what.
I completely agree. I was talking to this one gentleman the other day, and he had a totally different set of beliefs as me, but it's how I approached him that made him curious. Um, I'm not just gonna throw his name out there, but we were talking about God, and if I would have went up to him in a very prideful, "I'm right, you're wrong," a sort of sense, he would have immediately taken like a defensive, personality in a defensive manner. But I went up to him with curiosity to what he believes and curiosity to who he is. And then I stated who I am, not by pushing on him, just by being confident in what I believe. And it made him curious on what I believe because I wasn't pushing it. I was just putting it in front of him and giving him the option. And I think that's very important for any belief. If you're trying to push jiu-jitsu upon someone, you can't just go and be like, bro, you're fat, you got to train. Someone be like, whoa, well, screw you, man. It's like, you got to be like, look at all the good things jiu-jitsu has brought on my life. Look at all the good things that jiu-jitsu can bring for your life. Yes or no? And then people usually be like, yeah, I'll do it now. So same thing.
Yeah, same thing. You're right. It's like almost training both people. It's training the student to become more receptive, but also teaching the teachers how to teach in a way.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think it keeps going back to humility. Like that's something that I kind of heard from you was like humility. I mean, that's something that I've heard from just that's something that I really admire about you, man. Is like you're a very humble person. And I know that you'd never say that because that would almost like be a oxymoron. Like I met one guy one time who was bragging about how humble he was, and I was like, dude, I don't know if you're that humble. Like, but you have that energy of a very humble person. And even at the beginning, I was introducing you as one of the best in the world. You're like, no, I'm not one of the best in the world, even though you just beat the number 4 guy. But anyway, what I'm getting at is I think that that's one of the gifts of martial arts, but also to both parties, to the student and to the teacher, because I just started teaching here. I just opened up the Jiu-Jitsu Outlet Academy, which is here right behind us. And was one of the first things I realized when I started teaching was that I don't really know that much. Like I don't know the whole depth of everything for sure. I mean, I definitely have my game and I've got a lot that I specialize in, but once I taught some of that, then I got to go back to the study books myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've got to keep diving deeper myself because there's so much to learn. And I feel like that's a big gift here of the martial arts. And that's kind of what I was hearing from you when you were talking. It's like, puts the teacher and the student in the right headspace to then have that more, I guess, spiritual conversation or to have an elevated conversation might be a better way to think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you were talking about humility, and it's something that I've been working on for a very long time. Not just my relationship with God, but my relationship with others, because I'm around a lot of like older people constantly, and I'm getting up there. I'm 20 years old, finally starting to get a little older, but I'm always around older people that know stuff way more than me. And the best thing I can do is when they're telling me something to listen, because when I'm trying to tell someone something, it's usually because I've thought about it for a very long time and I really feel like they need to hear it. And if someone's not there to listen to me, then they're going to gain nothing from that. So usually when someone is telling me something, it's usually important. So I tend to always approach that situation with like humility, just so I don't get like frustrated with what they're saying, and then I stop listening. I don't really take anything to heart. I never take anything too seriously until I'm alone and I think about it. When it's face to face, someone told me once, when you're face to face with someone, you guys are talking, never take anything too seriously, because then you can shut down and not hear what they have to say. Don't take it seriously until you're alone later that night. Then you can process it with them not in front of you. And ever since I started doing that, I everything was just, I could see their perspective. I could see their eyes from their shoes. I'm like, okay, I can see what they're where they're coming at. But when I would like, think about it instantly while we were face to face, I would usually been like, dang, bro, why you say that? And because I only saw my side.
Yeah, you get that time to reflect, put
Yeah.
you see the other person's perspective.
Yep. Yep. And I'm also learning. So I've been reading this book, and I'm trying to read more lately. My professor was like, "Man, you have to start reading." So I've been reading more lately, not just my Bible, other books, and it's called. Um, okay, shoot, it's called. I have it right here. I don't want to pick it up though. It's called How to Win Friends Over and Influence Others. And my professor gave me the idea of, when you first start to read, don't read books that are hard for you to read. Read books that you're interested in so you can build up that muscle in your brain, and then eventually over time move to harder books. And so I really like this book because I love talking and I love trying to influence others. And it gives me a great perspective on teaching, on how to be a good teacher. And it says in the book, it says, you have to understand personalities, and you have to understand how to approach personalities. And it gives like three different types of personalities. It gives the extreme go-getter personality. It gives the do it later, think about it personality, and it gives the in-between personality. And it teaches like how to approach each of them. And with the do it later personality, when you're teaching them, it says always to treat them like a manner of a pet. And I'll give the example, like, you have a dog, and you're not just going to be like, okay, if the dog is to go to the restroom outside, and you're trying to teach him that, you're not just gonna like spank him and make him go to the restroom, spank him, make him go to the restroom. You're gonna make him go to the restroom outside, then reward him, give him a treat. And then he'll be like, oh shoot, okay, I'm going to the restroom outside. I'm getting rewarded for that, so I'll keep doing that. And it was talking about how the more introverted personality acts better towards rewarding them for them doing right, not disciplining them for them doing wrong. And that's been helping me a lot when I'm teaching in classes. Like if a student isn't necessarily doing a position right, my instant words not being that's wrong, being like, hey man, let me help you out a bit, and I'm gonna make what you're doing a lot better. And once they do it right and me helping them, I'm like, hey man, really good job. You're doing excellent now. And then they're like, oh shoot, okay, now I'm doing good. And I've been seeing how that's been reflecting in my classes, and how my students are listening to me more, because they're not like embarrassed to ask a question. They're not scared to ask a question because they know I'm not going to down them, or they know I'm not going to embarrass them. So they feel free to show their weaknesses, because they know I'm only going to help them.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's a great book, by the way. I love that book. Super powerful, especially in business, or if you're doing a podcast like this one, or just if you want to do just about anything. But one of the big takeaways I had from reading that book was just that I needed to shut up more and I needed to listen a lot more. And I always try to, in a conversation, I always try to be the one who speaks less and listens more. And that's one of the things that I've also tried to do with this, with podcasting, has really taught me that as well. Like, because I'm on the autism spectrum, and communication doesn't come naturally to me. And that book actually helped me a lot. So I love you bringing that up, because it's almost like for me, it was like a training manual. It was like something that I was like, finally, someone put all this stuff that I've been trying to figure out into a freaking book. And helps a lot, man, because a lot of that stuff he writes in there, you think sounds kind of like common sense, but it is not, especially for people like me, where communicating with others is not my forte. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, man. That's a fantastic book.
You're an excellent communicator. I do have to say that. You're really well at deciding which words you're going to use in your sentences, and you flow really well. So I do have to compliment you on that.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. And you as well. You're more articulate than
So
you give yourself credit for. But dude,
yeah,
I have
articulate. That's it. That's the word. Thank you. You helped. Thank you.
got you, bro. So I wanted to ask you one more question. I asked Renee Souza came on the podcast a little while ago, and we were talking about this. He's similar minded that spirituality and jujitsu for him kind of go hand in hand. And I was also talking with Pedro Mourinho about this. He's also someone who's very spiritual. We were talking about this same
Really?
thing.
Wow.
We was talking about how, you know, he sees like that is fundamental to his life. And I was asking him this same question that I'm about to ask you. And we were trying to figure this out. But why do you think so many martial artists are so spiritual? Because it seems like kind of a thing. The more that I get to know people in the martial arts community, it seems like spirituality is really important to a lot of us. And I was wondering, like, why do you think that is? Especially if you think about it, I mean, we're literally practicing how to kill each other. You would think that it would attract, I mean, that's kind of the stereotype a lot of times too, is that the people who get drawn into MMA and stuff like that are super violent and all this stuff. But then you go and actually meet them, and again, a lot of them are really into spirituality and they consider it one of the biggest parts of their life. So why do you think that is? Is there something about martial arts that
I
gets you?
have a I have thought about this before. Um, I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but I have a verse that instantly pops into my head, and it says, "Go unto the Father with a meek spirit. Go unto the Father with thanksgiving." And so, when we go to God, our Father, we don't go to Him with, "God, I need this. God, I need that." 'Cause that's not very humble. We start off, "Thank you for the things around me." Immediately being like, "Thank you for this," humbling ourselves. And as a fighter, we have all lost before. We have all gotten beat up before. So usually fighters are pretty humble, in person. And if they aren't humble, then they're usually going to be humbled soon. Um, and so one thing that I'm really learning is when we're naturally just living a humble life of, okay, I need to train more. I need to be, more on the mats and be getting beat up more so that I can get better. Then naturally we're just drawn to spiritual stuff like that. Well, any spirituality, if it's God or any other sort of religion, most religions you're usually in a pretty humble manner when you're, praying or when you're seeking what you believe in. So I think that's why fighters are just so naturally drawn to spirituality, because they're always in a humble state of trying to get better, trying to pursue something that's greater than they are, because I know every person I fight is better than me before my training camp. I have to go through my training camp. I have to get 10 times better. Then I'm on the level to compete with them. If I just fought them without a training camp, I'd lose. So you have to like humble yourself before the training camp in order to get better from it. And I think that's why they relate so well to each other, and why fighters are usually drawn towards spirituality. What do you think?
Man, that's a great way to put it. I think I that makes a lot of sense actually, because one time I was praying and I feel like I was getting like a lot of secrets of the universe from God, so to speak. Like I felt like during this discussion with God, so to speak, that he was sharing a lot with me about just the way the world works and all this other stuff. And I was like, God, why are you giving me this knowledge? Like, why are you sharing? Why am I allowed to know this sort of, I guess, mystery of the universe? And the answer that I got back was because I asked, because I'm curious. And I felt like that was a big lesson that I hear from a lot of people who are further along in the spiritual path than I am. They say like curiosity is really one of the big things, like that. If you keep asking, if you go to God and you ask and you say, hey, I don't know this, like can you tell me? Like I remember when I was a kid, I read this story of Solomon, And I read that Solomon asked that, you can ask for wisdom, right? That's the story about Solomon, is he asked for wisdom, not for riches or for ladies or for any of that other stuff. And I realized in that moment, I was like, wait a second, I can do that. And then I started asking God more about that. Like, please, like, give me wisdom, give me understanding. And that's kind of been like the whole theme of my search with my relationship with God, is searching, and trying to like figure out what is this reality that we find ourselves in, and just how does it work? Like I'm fascinated by those sorts of questions. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is I feel like that's really kind of what you were saying, is like, we don't know everything. Like, that's almost a fundamental part of spirituality, is that it's a mystery. Like a lot of the ancient traditions, for example, they would call it the mystery schools, where you would go to learn about these sorts of things. There's stories of Jesus going to the mystery schools in Egypt when he was a kid. But I guess what I'm saying is, um, it's always perceived as a mystery, this whole thing of what exactly is God doing, right? Like, none of us know that plan.
Yeah,
It's a
I feel you, man. I
mystery.
feel you.
And if you think you know it all, like, dude, you do not. If you think that you know what God is, you will find out the next day you do not.
And same with jiu-jitsu, man. If you think you know everything, you're gonna get beat. You're not trying to get better. Same thing. I like that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that it's crazy, but you really hit the nail on the head with that. I think it's the humility, because you're right.
Well, I like what you said. You said, you know, there's a verse about actually what you said. You have not because you ask not. Same thing with your professor in jiu-jitsu. If you never ask him, hey professor, can I drill with you after class? Hey, professor, can you show me this position? Usually he's not going to go up to you because he's pretty busy. He's pretty tired. And you have not because you ask not. And it goes hand in hand, jiu-jitsu and God. And that is a verse, by the way. So there's another verse where it's like, I stand at the door and I knock, and it shall be open to you. So you stand at the door and you ask, and I shall answer you. You stand at the door and you seek me, and I shall find you. And all of those things go hand in hand. You have to actually go after it in order to get it, because he's standing there. God's standing there just waiting for you. But you have it because you don't have it because you're not going to him for it. And then I learned lately, actually, that I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I learned lately that, you know, I feel like the devil, gets in our minds a bit and doesn't want us to constantly be asking God for stuff. He's like, okay, well, that's, you're being selfish, you're being prideful. It shouldn't all be about you. And of course, it shouldn't all be about you. But we constantly need to dream. We constantly need to tell God what we want. We constantly need to ask God where we want to go and what we want to do. And he'll inspire those dreams and he'll inspire those questions, and then he'll give it to us because we're consistent and we're asking. But if we never go to the Father and ask him, we'll never get it. So I feel like I learned that lately, and that's what the devil was working in my life a little bit. He was making me afraid of asking God for stuff because I felt like I was being selfish in a bit. So I got past that, thank God, and now I'm not afraid to just ask God for stuff for hours. Just like, God, give me this. God, give me more wisdom. Give me more patience and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I love what you said there too at the end, because you're asking not for material stuff, but for greater personality traits for yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm not just going to ask for a Lamborghini. I mean, sometimes, but I'll ask him for the traits that will build me up into the person that could handle a Lamborghini. If I got a Lamborghini right now, I'd do terrible stuff with it. I'd probably crash it. But one day, if I'm, have the character of $1 million man, I'm not materialistic $1 million man. My character is worth $1 million. If one day my character is worth $1 million by, help letting God use me and letting God work in my life, then maybe I can own a Lamborghini and be responsible with it. But as of right now, definitely not.
Yeah. I think that man, what you're saying is really important too. That we have to be able to dive in and just kind of have that direct communication, be like, hey, I'm trying to work on this. But it's just like jujitsu, like you said, it's like God is using jujitsu to train us for how to be, right? Because like you
Yeah.
said, professors there waiting for you to ask. You know what I mean? Like it's the allegory is almost funny in some way. It's like I stand at the door and knock. You can see that your jujitsu professor saying that sometimes. Be like, I stand at the door and knock to teach you some more jujitsu. You just got to show up to class, right? You know, it's that
Yeah.
same sort of mentality. Yeah, it's such an allegory.
Yep. I really feel like God's working in jiu-jitsu in my life lately. Because I if you don't know, I'm sure you know, but I got injured against PJ, and I've been physical therapy as injury has been so good for me. It's gotten me closer to God because it's taught me to rely on Him. If I just push God away and be like, okay, I can fix this injury on my own, man, it's gonna take so long. It's gonna take a couple of months, but it's taught me really to put my trust in God and put my, and to rely on Him so that, hopefully, and I'm in hoping that He'll bless me and that He'll reward me for being faithful even through, the shallow times. So it's drawn me so close to God, not only for the reward of being healed, but for the being thankful that I wasn't hurt more, or that opportunities are still coming out of this. Like I get to be on this podcast, and it's just, I'm sure if I was training and competing, I wouldn't have time for the podcast. So it's still so many good things are coming out of it. And that's drawn me so close to God that He's still working in my life, even though my life has shifted a lot in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and now you get an opportunity, like for using this as an example, to share about this message, right? And a lot of people hear about this and get to hear a different side of what a jiu-jitsu star might be concerned with versus buying a big house and driving around in fancy cars and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. That's all
Yeah,
cool.
mainly what I'm concerned with is just because you would think that I want to just get back to competing as soon as possible, and that's what most people would think that I am wanting to do in my life. But mainly, all I want to do is I just want to take a break from competing, and I just want to focus on getting as healthy as possible. Everyone's asking me like, when's the next competition you're doing? It's like, man, I'm gonna take off a while. I really want to be just as healthy as possible because I'm 20 years old. I got a long career ahead of me, and I don't want to hinder those years by an injury that I didn't fully heal. So I just want to take the time off and completely heal and completely rebuild my body up so that I can go into 2023 with a fresh gas tank, not half empty.
I think that's such a brilliant way to think about it, man. And good on you too, because so many people would just jump right back in and get hurt again and then regret it later. So I think that's definitely the smart way to do it, man. But hey, we do got to wrap this up here momentarily.
No.
Wanted to ask you, bro, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Like, is there anything else that's on your heart to talk about related to this topic?
If there's like a message that I could give for people, it's just that I freaking love Jiu-Jitsu and I freaking love God, man. I mean, they've helped me so much, and I love them so much because they've both shown me so many powerful things. They've shown me that I can't be a prideful fighter. I can't go to God and be a prideful, son. I can't go into the world and be prideful. They've shown me that the only way that I'm going to grow as a human being is with a humble and hungry spirit, and with a confident spirit. When I compete, I realize go into this match as confident as possible, but respect them and be humble in that manner. Go to God as confident as possible with what you're asking, but be humble and respect Him. Same thing with going into the world when you talk to people. Be confident in yourself so people will listen to you, but be humble of their feelings and respect them. And I just hope that everyone can learn that Jiu-Jitsu, God, and living a daily healthy life are so similar, and they all can help you out in the same manner. And I just want to let everyone know, if you hear this or not, that God loves you so much. And if you don't believe in Him, and if you do believe in Him, He loves you no matter what you do. And He wants you to believe in Him so that you guys can have a relationship. The funny thing that people misconcept about God sometimes is that they feel like they have to go to him in order to find him, and they have to go to him in order to get something. All you need to do is just believe in him, and he'll come to you. And he's waiting for you. He's standing right there. All you have to do is just say, all right, God, who are you? What are you doing? And he'll find you because he loves you so much and he's waiting for you. And I was so happy the day that I made that decision to start going to God and start letting him, hug me, start letting him bring me, closer. And it's just so cool, man. The paths that God's brought me on, the path Jiu-Jitsu's brought me on. And I just love him so much. And I can't wait to continue getting closer to God and continue becoming a better Jiu-Jitsu fighter. I still got a lot of time left to do those two. So I'm just so thankful that got into it as a young age, Jiu-Jitsu and believing in God. And from here on out, history, and I'm just going to tackle it as hard as possible. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know if any of that made sense, but hopefully it did.
I totally agree. Like, I think that, man, diving into your relationship with God, it's like God takes 10 steps towards you for every one that you take towards him. And I think a big part too of the person's relationship with the divine is understanding the power of faith and the power of belief. And faith and belief really are the whole game. And that's kind of the whole thing. So it's almost like you have to start believing in the power of belief, and you have to start believing in God and in something else before you can experience that sort of benefit. You know what I mean? I think that's what people just don't see. They think like, oh man, you're just fooling yourself because you believe in this thing. But what we're trying to say is, no, the power of belief is the whole thing. Like, that's kind of what Jesus would say, right? He would say it's your faith that healed you, right? It's not, he wouldn't say it's me necessarily. He would say it's your faith is what allowed you to be healed. And I really feel like that's a big part of it, man. It's like you have to kind of give God an inch and he takes a mile, sort of thing. And but you have to open up to it. If you're totally closed off to it, then God's just going to be like, okay, cool, guess you're one of those people who decided to be closed off. And the free will is respected, right? Like, if you don't want to have that experience of having a spiritual existence, then the spiritual world is like, all right, we stay over here. But it's the moment that you kind of open up to it, it's crazy, it's powerful.
Man, that's really well said. I've never thought about it like that. Faith is what healed you. That's so good, man. I totally agree. And I love that sometimes in our desperateness we find God.
Right.
Some people find God because other people tell them about them, and some people are so closed off to God that they only can find God in the desperate time. And I'm learning that. I'm learning that when I share my faith of God to other people, don't never being too pushy, always approaching them with what type of character and person they are. Um, and realizing that some people only can find God by God, directly finding them. And yeah, I mean, I wish that everyone would accept God into their life through God working through me and teach them, or through God working through others and teaching them. But some people are just really closed off and they don't want to listen to what any human or any person would want to say. They have to experience it for themselves.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing, just like jiu-jitsu, because a lot of people are hard to teach, and the only way you can teach them is after you choke them, and then you're like, hey, you want me to show you how I choked you? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
But if you like, hey, you want me to show you a submission before the roll, they're like, no, man, you have to submit them and then show them the submission. So yeah, it's a hard balance, but it's something I'm learning, and it's something I'm thankful, because the process is amazing on how to share my faith and how to speak to people about God.
Yeah, man. Well, you're doing a fantastic job of that. And I really appreciate you bringing more light to this conversation and for coming on the show. And I really appreciate you, man. So thanks so much for doing this.
I didn't know you before this podcast, but I feel like I know a little bit about you now, and it's really cool, man, that I get to meet another, another believer, another, someone that loves God. Because when I meet someone that knows jiu-jitsu, I'm like, yeah, yeah. When I meet someone that loves God, same reaction. So it's really cool, man, to meet you. And I hope that God, what's up?
That is great to meet you too.
Yeah, let's go. I hope that God blesses your jiu-jitsu gym. I hope God that blesses your impact in the jiu-jitsu community. I hope he blesses your life. So let's freaking go.
Well, thank you, man. The same to
Oh,
you.
let's go. Thank you, man. Thank you, Paul. Do you
Thank
want
you.
to pray before we head out? Or
Sure. Go
you
for
got
it.
any more questions? All right. Um, and I don't know if this you're gonna put this on, but it don't really matter. But hey, God, it's your son Andrew. It's Paul. We're here doing a podcast. You already know that, but I just want to ask you one thing, God, that you would just bless Paul's life, and that you would just bless this platform, God, that you have inspired him to, start shooting on, that you've inspired him, Lord, to start doing. So, God, I pray that you use this platform, Lord, to bring glory to your name and to bring success to Paul's career. God, I pray you place him on greater heights, that you inspire and that you encourage, Lord, his dreams and his wonders and his goals, God, that you would elevate all of them and that you'd make him want to be the very best, God. God, I pray, Lord, that in times of challenge, that you would give Paul nothing but patience and peace, because your name is the Prince of Peace. Your name is the Great Divine. Your name is perfect and upright. So, God, I pray that your name would just be stamped on Paul's life, Prince of Peace. Every challenge he goes through, because he's going to go through them. He's a businessman. He's going to go through them. So, God, I pray that you just bless him with peace in every situation. Just like the disciples when they were in the storm and Peter saw God out in the water, he felt peace, God. So just let peace reign over Paul's life and use every single day he wakes up, use every single business call, every single person that walks in his gym, and every single person that's on his podcast to just be a way for him to show your love to the world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And
Let's freaking go.
I just ask that all those nice things that you said about me get returned back onto you, because like God said, whenever you give to someone else, you receive 10 times. So you just gave me a blessing. So I know God will give you 10 times what you just asked that I be given. So thank you, brother. Appreciate you, and appreciate you, everything that you do, man. So I just wanted to end on this. Just tell us a little bit more about where they can find you. And if anyone wants to follow you and find more about what you're doing and learn more about the topics we've been discussing, where can they do that?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on social media. My Instagram is Andrew.Tackett. You guys can find me at Brazilian Fight Factory as one of the head coach professors and a assistant professor for the adults. You guys can find me at Celebration. That is the church that I go to. It's Celebration Church. It's a great church. You guys can find me at all of those platforms. And lastly, you guys can find me on Tyler's Great Podcast. If you guys are watching this, then watch all of the other podcasts because they're just as fire as this one.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. And hey, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more from Andrew, go check out below. I'll put all the links down there. So click those links and give him a follow. Give him your attention, because Andrew, dude, you're one of the dudes that's coming up, and I think you're just getting started, bro. And I mean, you know that. You know that, bro. You're just getting started. You're not even in your prime. So I'm excited to watch you over the next, couple of decades. See what happens, man. It's good to meet you. Good to be knowing you, brother. And we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too, man.